Hi, everybody, and welcome to Nerd of the Third Power, your one-stop shop for all things nerdy and awesome. I'm your host and master of ceremonies, Dr. Gonzo. With me, as always, in this epic quest of awesomeness is our resident anime goddess, the Cat. Cat, how you doing?
I survived. Oh god, I'm so tired. Oh god, why did I work I worked a full week at work, and then I worked at Comic-Con all weekend. I'm so tired.
Okay. Well, I guess you're here. You're in one piece. You're not suffering from con plague, so I guess that's something to be thankful for.
No, I was sick before I went.
Oh, so you decided to get it over with before you even went to con. Okay, well that's good thinking ahead.
I am patient zero.
Okay. And we got a full boat in our correspondence corner. Brian, John, Brendan, how you guys doing?
I say we should welcome back Brendan first. Everyone?
Yes, welcome back, Brendan. As I said before we started recording, the Blast Seeker has blast sought and been blast found.
Blast returned. Lovely. Okay. Well, yeah, good to be back. It's been a tough month or so, but yeah, thanks. It's good to be back. Thanks, guys.
Good to have you back. Okay, but yeah, we got a full boat today, and well, almost a full boat. Skyblaze is not with us, so we can't seem to win. So get better soon, Skyblaze. Hope you be back soon. But yeah, we got a good show for you tonight. Tonight we're discussing Captain America: The Winter Soldier. So yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun. But first, we're gonna a little bit of procedure here. So we're gonna start as always with Ask a Geek, and we've got a bunch of questions here. First one here comes from Kyle, and it is for Brian, and it actually just came in this morning. It says, Brian, as a wrestling fan, what did you think of the recent WrestleMania with the breaking of the Undertaker's streak? And I'm gonna have to ask you to explain what happened, because I'm not a wrestling fan, so I don't understand what happened. So for us non-wrestling fans, why don't you tell us first what all this is about?
All right, everyone, take a seat. This might take a while. WrestleMania is always the biggest show for the World Wrestling Federation. It is their Super Bowl. That's what they sort of call it. And every year for the past 21 years, The Undertaker, one of their most prominent, popular characters, has remained undefeated at the show. Every match he's had, be it whatever type of match, he has won it. And that is so that for a while they sort of started building up that it's the undefeated streak, it's the streak, and every sort of year there's a sort of storyline that someone tries to step up to the plate and unseat him at being undefeated, being the guy who finally took down the Undertaker. At WrestleMania 30 this past weekend, the new challenge was Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar is actually at one time was a WWE champion, left for a while, joined UFC, became their heavyweight champion, eventually lost the belt, left UFC, and came back to WWE. He was the big challenger. And to make a long story short, the match happened, and The Undertaker lost. And I've never seen 70,000 people go silent all at the same time. So that's what happened. What the backlash is. Oh, what?
Now was this kind of a we have seen the face of God silent, or was this kind of a what the fuck just happened silent?
It was what the fuck just happened. Everyone going into this show, and for the past several years, it was a given. Like this match was a given. It's like, okay, it's the Undertaker match. He wins. That's everyone's thought. Everyone had that thought through the weeks leading up to it, to the morning of, to the start of the match, until the end of the match. Everyone was like, the Undertaker is obviously going to win. This is always what happens. Oh, look, that's Brock Lesnar's finishing move. This is okay. 1, 2, 3. What? And even I, like, I was not into the match as much, and I was watching it and I had my computer out to the side, and I saw the finishing move. I was like, okay, he's probably going to kick out. I kind of tilted my head to the side, and then I heard the slap of the 3, and my head literally whipped back to the screen, and my jaw was, on the floor going, what? It's a what? Like, and you wait for it, and you waited for the people, and you waited for the announcement, and the announcement came that Brock Lesnar had won, and no one really could believe it. Now, to sort of give a backstory and sort of a curtain behind this, like I said before, Undertaker has been wrestling for about 20 some odd years. He was going to retire eventually. We all sort of knew that. So we all kind of felt like when he retired, he would probably lose at WrestleMania, but we weren't really sure who he was going to lose to. So it was a massive, massive shock for it to lose to Brock Lesnar, because a lot of people didn't think Brock Lesnar was the quote the guy to do it, both storyline and sort of in real life terms. So there's a bit of a backlash to that. But at the same time, the reaction afterwards, and like me being shocked, looking at the crowd, and the crowd being completely in disbelief, and like I said, 70,000 people silent. It's moments like that. It's kind of why I like wrestling, because it was a very big, unpredictable, I would never believe I could see it. I just witnessed a history like making moment, for good or for ill. Like it got me also a little bit excited to see what would come sort of next, and also a little bit sad because this probably was Undertaker's last match, and unfortunately he got injured and concussed early in the match, and the match suffered greatly for it. So it wasn't like a good match to leave on. But, he had one bad match at the end versus 20 plus years of great matches. I can handle that.
Okay, all right. So you're kind of yeah, it was a bad ending, but hey, put up against the rest of the career, it's a good, it's not, in the grand scheme of things, it's not that big a thing.
For me, for the grand scheme of things, not really. A lot of people wanted like a new younger guy to beat him and have him be, maybe the new character because of it. To be quite honest, I feel like if that happened, I was thinking about, if that happened, that new or younger guy would probably be destroyed by that moniker of the guy who retired The Undertaker. Like, there'd be so much pressure on him to succeed. Any misstep is going to be magnified 100 times. So having it be Brock Lesnar, this basically the biggest villain now in the world of professional wrestling. Like, I see that as a better move, and apparently it was The Undertaker's choice to have him beat him finally. And like, I respect The Undertaker so much that it's like I'm not gonna really, I shouldn't say I'm not gonna question it, but at the same time, it's like, if this is the way, if this is how he chose it, you know what? I respect him more enough to go, all right, I will live with this decision. I will deal with it for good or for ill. That's it. Because you've given me so much entertainment over the years, I am more than willing to let this happen. I'm more than willing to let this sort of go, like, as respect to him.
Okay. Alrighty. Okay, next question here comes from Katie, and it is for Kat, and she asked, are there any anime that you're disappointed didn't get licensed for U.S. distribution?
There's probably a few out there. It's mostly like a lot of second seasons of anime that I'm disappointed we didn't get in the US, because, to be frank, I don't really bootleg things like I used to once upon a time, many, many years ago. So I don't really know what's in Japan that isn't out here, because I'm just not paying quite enough attention. But there are a couple of second seasons of shows that I really wish we would have gotten, but we didn't, because those shows just didn't sell enough here to warrant it. And the two main examples I can think of are the story of Saionkoku, which is like hands down the best shoujo anime I've ever seen. And then Big Wind Up, the second season of Big Wind Up, I really would have liked. Wind Up didn't get another season because sports anime don't sell in the US, and we can never figure out why. And yeah, that's all I got.
Okay. All right. Next question here is from Greg, and it is for all of us. Is there any properties in your respective medium that you enjoy that other people might be surprised to find out about? So, John, let's start with you.
I had a feeling you were going to pick me first. You know, I've probably brought this up a few times in the past, but I very unironically enjoy the live-action 1980s Masters of the Universe movie starring Dolph Lundgren and Frank Langella. I fully recognize that it is a bad movie. I fully recognize that it was a complete and total, well, I won't say complete and total waste, but mostly a waste of the concept and properties of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. But I still love it. It has a lot of nostalgic feels for me, and I am completely unashamed to admit that I do love that movie.
Okay. Brian, what about you?
That's actually really hard to say because I'm fairly a basic person, so I don't think there's anything really I read or enjoy that would really shock a lot of people. To be quite honest, I might have to sort of sit back going, I do not know.
Okay. Kat, what about you?
I think I'm kind of in the same boat where I'm very honest about the stuff that I like, and I think people are more surprised about the stuff that I don't like than the stuff that I do like.
Okay, so what's something that you don't like that people would be surprised about?
And nobody should be surprised because I've said this so many times on the show, but I don't like Studio Ghibli films. I've never really enjoyed a Miyazaki film at all. And I have no idea why. They've just never sat right with me. And that always surprises people because like Studio Ghibli is this, can do no wrong, hallowed ground kind of thing where everything they do is perfect except for Ponyo to some people, to some honest people. And then I can't say I've ever really enjoyed Pokemon, which shocks a lot of people because if you ever pay attention to my Facebook or if you follow me on Facebook, I post a decent amount of Pokemon stuff, but I post it for my friends who like Pokemon, but I've never ever cared about Pokemon at all.
Okay, all right, I can see that. Well, I mean, you're not much of a gamer to begin with, and so I think maybe that might be kind of contribute to it because a lot of the culture surrounds the games themselves instead of the show.
Yeah, and then I never watched the show because I was kind of too old for it. It's mostly because it was on like a local channel that I didn't get with my satellite service at the time, so I had to turn off my satellite to get that channel. So like the Fox box and stuff, I never watched any of those shows unless I was at a friend's house and they forced me to watch terrible dubs of things.
Wow, that took me back about 10 years.
Oh, God.
All right, Brendan, what about you? Something you enjoy that people would be surprised?
Within my relative area of expertise?
Or in general?
I'm going to... Okay, well, if we're going in general, I mean, I thought the question was, inside our area. I've said on the show before, I'm a pretty big fan of, cars, automotive stuff, which you might not think coming from a nerd because, well, stereotypes and all that. But, I'm a gamer. Put something in front of me with rules and an opponent, and I'll gladly play the shit out of it. But, my first love, even before I got into, gaming and all that, was cars. So, just, there's that, I suppose.
Okay. Well, I kind of along the same lines. I've spoken before on the show that I despise sports games. I hate sports games of any stripe. I just can't play them. With a couple of exceptions. One of which being Tecmo Super Bowl for the NES, which I've talked about before. Just because it's the only football game that I can really pick up and play and actually understand what the hell's going on. But another one a recent game, it's only a couple years old, that people are surprised to find in my library and that I play extensively is Burnout Paradise, which is a Need for Speed style car racing game. And people are surprised that I not only own it, but that I've clocked about 40 hours on it. Like, I thought you hated sports games. I thought you hated auto racing games. But, you seem to love this. And I was like, well, that's because it's one of the few games where if I take a car and slam it into a wall at 120 miles an hour, it actually feels like I'm actually destroying something. I don't know. It's got this weird combination of quirks and qualities that just kind of gels right with me. And I haven't found that, like I said, there hasn't been an auto racing game before that I really liked. There hasn't been one since, but Burnout Paradise just gets me going for some reason. I love it. Okay, let's see. Another question. Okay. All right. There's a really good one here. Where was it? Okay, here's one. The name only says Laxor0519, and he or she asks all of us, what is your plan for an alien invasion or zombie infestation? And I'm going to go first with this one and say, curl up into a ball and cry like a bitch.
Good plan.
Brian, what about you? What's your plan for the zombie apocalypse?
Get to a Costco and fortify yourself, because Costco is going to have food for months, and it doesn't have any open windows for them to break in through. It's mostly concrete. Just hope power doesn't go out, because then becomes a Paranormal Activity movie and you're probably screwed. For an alien invasion, I'm done. Like, yeah, I don't think I have any sort of plan against that. They have way better weapons.
You'll be crying like a bitch with me, huh?
I won't be crying. Well, maybe I won't be crying like a bitch. I mean, that's you. I won't be surviving either, but
you'll at least face death with dignity. Okay, Brendan, what about you?
I'm probably actually the opposite of Brian. I think in the event of an alien invasion, I'd probably try to steal some of their tech and either blow myself up trying to make it work, or launch, a valiant counterattack. In the event of a zombie apocalypse, however, fuck it, I'm done. No, I never could handle zombies. Just, no.
Okay. Kat, I think that leaves you. Oh no, we
And
haven't done John yet.
Kat can go first, though.
I was gonna say, you already said my name.
All right.
Alien attack, I have no plan. I am going to rely on maybe the idea that my dad, with all of his NSA knowledge, hopefully he knows something about aliens that we can use to survive. But no, it's probably crying like a bitch and then getting lasered or something. Zombie apocalypse, I have never actually given thought to what I would do except at work. Because I pretty much know if the zombie apocalypse happens, there's no point in surviving except for surviving. And if you're going to try and live on, it's just going to be horrible like all of the movies show you, and there's no point because it's just awful. And but I've thought about it at work. What would we do? Because it's so boring at work. And so I work at a Best Buy, and my Best Buy is next to a Barnes & Noble, which is next to a Old Navy, and we're all kind of, buildings that are attached. So we decided that because ours is the only building that has the grates that come down, that we have the highest chance of survival in our building. And we like the people over at Barnes & Noble. So if, and they have food and we have, some like snacks and candy and stuff. So we can all hole up in our building, and then we have roof access that zombies wouldn't be able to really climb up our really, really high ladder and a small chute and everything. And if we have to sacrifice people as a distraction, we're more than happy to get rid of the Old Navy people.
I don't know. I don't think there'd be enough meat on those hipster bones for the zombies.
They are pretty skinny girls, so yeah. It would have to do for now, and then maybe eventually we can start eliminating people we don't like from Barnes and Noble, because how useful are they in this situation? But we figure we can keep clothed through our contacts at Old Navy until they are no longer of any use to us.
Okay. John, what about you?
Well, as for the zombie apocalypse, I would probably just hole up somewhere with food and ammo for like a week or two and wait for nature to sort that out itself. Because, slow shambling slow shambling ambulatory slabs of rotting meat are kind of like a slow moving buffet for the rest of nature's creatures. So I honestly don't think zombies would be a very long-term problem. As for aliens, my faith is in the Avengers.
Ah, there we go. I like that answer.
Last question here comes from Peter, and he asks, I've always wondered about this. You always say Taka, play us out at the end, and then play the DuckTales Moon theme. Who is Taka, and what is it he's playing? This one we've got to kind of cast our mind back to the halcyon days of season 1 and 2, when we didn't know what the hell we were doing. Originally, at that point, we were keeping in touch with Takahata of Team 4-Star, who, those for the three of you who don't know who Team 4-Star are, they're the team who does Dragon Ball Z Abridged. And me and Kat, we kept in regular communication with Takahata, and when we were starting up the podcast, we wanted to have an announcer to kind of introduce us. And the original plan was that every week Taka would record a new intro and outro line, and we'd have a unique thing every week. But because of his, recording schedule with Team 4-Star, that didn't happen. We eventually just got rid of, we eventually stopped using the lines that Taka did record for us after a couple of seasons. But that end line, Taka, play us out, just became so habitual and iconic that it would feel weird now, I think, if we ended the show with anything else. What do you guys think?
So you're not putting Taka's little line at the end? I had no idea because I don't go back and listen. I just sort of assumed that we still had one of Taka's lines there.
No, we haven't done it.
Are you saying you retardedly are keep saying this without actually... What the fuck is wrong with you?
I like where this is going.
What? Every show's got its little trademark. Johnny Carson had his golf swing. Bob Barker had his have your pets neutered or spayed. We say Taka, play us out. What's wrong with having a trademark?
Taka's not playing us out. That's what's wrong.
Well, see, I'm with Gonzo on this. I'm seeing this as evolving into a little bit of Jimmy Durani's, "Good night, Mrs. Murgatroyd, wherever you are" thing, and nobody had any idea who or what he was talking about.
Yes, but they're famous and can afford to be weird.
Okay, Gonzo.
Well,
Gonzo, then okay, it's officially decided. Be more famous before you're weird.
fuck that! Like Frankie said, I'm doing it my way.
If it makes you feel better, I like the line.
See, Brian likes the line.
I like the line too when it's accurate.
This is gonna be like eating away at your soul from now on, isn't it?
Who's to say? This is from Danny, and he asks, "Are there any manga that you would like to see adapted into anime that haven't been, or vice versa?"
Okay, so manga that I want to be made into anime that hasn't, and vice versa. Probably there aren't too many anime that I'd like to see as manga because most of them originate as a manga or a series of novels and not the other way around. Very rarely do anime just start out as an original concept, and usually when they do, they pretty quickly get a manga adaptation. But they're maybe not some manga, but some of the Korean comics I would like to see anime of because it's extremely, extremely rare for one of the Korean comic books to ever really get a good anime adaptation. It almost never happens. Actually, I can't even name a time that it's happened. And there's a couple of really good ones that I'd like to see. The primary being the Ragnarok manhwa, which was very loosely tied in with Ragnarok Online. It was made by the guy who designs all of Ragnarok Online, the MMORPG.
I've heard good things about that one.
It's a really, really good comic. He just stopped working on it to work more on the game. And then there was an anime, but it wasn't based on the comic. It was based on the game. Not even really based on the game. It was just set in the world of the game, I think. And it had character classes, but it had nothing to do with the comic. And the comic was really, really amazing. And it was all based in Norse mythology, and it was really great. And it kind of left on these major cliffhangers, and it's never going to be picked up ever again, and that makes me so sad. So sad.
Okay.
I'm still disappointed all these years later that they only made 2 episodes of Dragon Half myself.
Oh man, that is one where like there are, now that you've brought it up, there are ones where they made OVAs of them in the 90s, but there was a lot more source material that they could make into a full series, and Dragon Half is one of them. Another one is came out around the same time as Dragon Half, but it's called Twin Signal, which had to do with robots and shit, and that was really cool.
Yeah, it'd be kind of nice to see some of those revisited, wouldn't it? Or
Yeah.
even just the manga published in freaking English.
I'll tell you one that I would like to see. I would like them to deliver what was promised, and that was I don't know if I know Kat remember this because she's the one who showed it to me. But there's a manga called Apocalypse Meow, which is basically the Vietnam War as fought by bunnies and stoats.
Now that isn't,
but
that's distinct from like Cat Shit 1, isn't it?
No, that's what Cat Shit 1 came from. That was the source material for Cat Shit 1. They just updated the time frame so they're like in Iraq and not in Vietnam. But no, the Cat Shit 1, that was they were supposed to make that into a full series, but we got one episode released on YouTube and then radio silence, and that was like fucking 6 years ago. And the thing is, like, if you go and you read Apocalypse Meow, it's fucking awesome stuff. Like, I read through, I found scans of the whole manga and I read through and I loved it. And so I was, I saw the Cat Shit 1 episode that was released and I was really excited. I was like, yes, more, I want more, give me more.
And then
Still
nothing.
More. Now at this point, I'm like Oliver Twist. I'm standing outside the animation studio. Please, sir, I want some more.
More.
And then you get thrown out of the orphanage.
Yeah. Only to be reunited with the long-lost rich father who somehow never knew about me. But that's, Dickens for you. Anyway, back on the tracks. Kat, did you ever hear anything else about that or why they didn't make any more?
No, I've never really looked into it.
But yeah, no. If you can still find the Cat Shit 1 episode online, please God do a YouTube search and for God's sakes filter it. Because if you type Cat Shit 1 into a search bar and you don't have safe search on, you can get some really stuff you don't want to see. But if you can find it on YouTube, it's amazing, and I really want to have seen more of that. So, yeah. But any last things to add to that question, Kat?
Negative.
Okay. All right, well, that's all the Ask the Geek questions that we have for this week, and ordinarily this is where we jump right in the headlines. So I want to take a moment to talk about something that we really want to do and we're really excited to do. We're going to shake things up a little bit. Every now you longtime listeners know that every now and then when we don't have anything better to do, we'll just do an extended Ask a Geek episode, and we'll just answer pretty much all the backlog questions that we have, good or bad. We want to do something a little different this time. We want to ask you the questions. We want to ask you, the listeners, because you guys are geeks, so we're going to do an Ask the Geek. We're going to ask the geeks. We're going to ask you guys some questions. So the way this is going to work is we're on our Facebook. We're going to put up some details on how this is going to go through. And then next week next week's episode, we're going to release the questions that we're going to be asking you guys. And we want you guys to email us your answers. You can either write them down, or if you have the equipment, you can record your answers. And then the best ones, we'll take the best answers and read them off on the show, or if they're pre-recorded, play them on the show. And we want to hear you guys sound off. We want to hear your opinions on some stuff. So come next week, we'll have about 9 or 10 questions that we'll be asking you guys, and we want to hear your opinions on them. So keep an eye on the show and on our Facebook. If you haven't liked our Facebook, why haven't you? Keep your eyes here and on the Facebook for details on how that's gonna work out and what questions we're gonna be asking you. So yeah, and with that, it's time for us to just jump right into our headlines, starting this week with Brian. Brian, take it away.
Thank you. Well, the sales for the month of March have come in, and they are just about as blah, if you want to call it that, as the month of February. Sales are down again for the third straight month now, and they're not doing so hot as compared to last year and the year before, though we still don't have a really reasonable explanation for it. Comics Beat has told all of us analysts and would-be reporters to shut up about the weather. That isn't the problem. Okay then. So we really don't have a solution. Some feel that perhaps that the market is beginning to have a cool off since the huge growth spurt it had since 2011. There's real no way to say it without some more information. All we have is Diamond's report. We still don't have digital sales. Also of note though, it's only a few sales that are down. While the retail and market shares are about the same for DC and Marvel, Image has had its best month of growth since the year 2000. So not everyone seems to be affected by the cool off, at least not yet. We do have some massive big events and other items coming in and relaunches, so the sales could possibly pick up for this month or at least next month at the latest. In the top 10, DC took the top 4 spots, while Marvel completely dominated the bottom 6. There's been no real change in what they are in terms of titles. If you listen to my past broadcast, you'll recognize names like Batman, Justice League, Spider-Man. The only new one was Silver Surfer #1 coming in at the number 9 spot, so congratulations to them. Until we get some more information, sales might continue to dip, but I'm not sure if we should be holding up the red flag of emergency just yet. Speaking of which, relaunches, Teen Titans was cancelled earlier this year, and many believe it would be relaunched. Well, congratulations. That's sort of a no-brainer answer, but that is in fact what is happening. The title will be relaunched in July with a new writing and creative team in Will Pfeiffer, who's currently writing the Red Hood and the Outlaws books. He's coming in after the end of Scott Lobdell's run. The roster for the team is basically the same. You're going to have Red Robin, Wonder Girl, Raven, Bunker, and Beast Boy. There's no real terms yet if that's going to be the final roster. That may just be the starting roster, and like any sort of team books, they might pick up a few others along the way. The art is going to be put forth by Kenneth Rockford, who has been working on many titles, Superman, Red Hood and the Outlaws, and he's worked on a few Teen Titans as well. So expect this to come up in July. Speaking of DC still, they have a big variant cover special event happening in Bombshells. But there is a little bit of a difference. DC are making a little bit of change of how you order the covers. They will be open to order, with no minimum order on any item required. What that usually means is that with a lot of variant covers, you would have to order a specific amount of that book to get that one cover, or 2 covers depending on how the incentive goes. They've dropped that for these covers, meaning if you go to your comic book shop, you can actually just order that cover for them. This is amazingly generous to happen from a big publisher like this. We were just talking about this several shows ago, how you could get sort of an open buffet style of variant covers, and they seem to be at least testing that with this. Depends on how well it goes. They might continue it, but they might not, so I don't know. The covers can be found online, so if you find one that you really like and you're a fan of variants, go ahead into your local comic book shop and ask them to order that, since it's now up for open orders. Over at Marvel, there's some sort of interesting little addition going on to the Amazing Spider-Man #1 launch. It's going to be a very big book, and it's always getting a lot of press with a lot of advanced orders. But not only are you going to get Amazing Spider-Man, you're also going to get Inhuman #1 with the book. Inhuman was the big event starring the Inhumans of the Marvel Universe that was originally going to be written by Matt Fraction, but unfortunately he had to drop the book and the series went then to Charlie Soule. Inhuman #1 is actually already out for sale right now, but it didn't get a lot of the response I think Marvel was looking for, which is why they're adding this complete book to Amazing Spider-Man #1. I do believe they feel like they can combine the two, because I do think Amazing Spider-Man #1 will probably be the best seller when it comes out. There seems to be no question about that. that by adding this book, it might get people to either pick up Inhuman #2 when it comes out on sale in May, or at least try to get Inhumanity going as well. This was supposed to be their big event and big series, and possibly use them for future items in movies and television, since they can't use mutants. Time will tell to see if that actually happens. Over at IDW, 24 Underground has sold out. It's interesting that this is a new licensed property based on the TV series 24, and it sold out about a 1,200 print run, a very small print run for a new book, but because it sells out, and most likely will get another printing afterwards, it could help that there is going to be another 24 happening, so this is a good connection for the series. So congratulations IDW, and here's hope for a good run on the series. I'm wondering if it will take 24 hours to read. Now, in my final story of the day, I get to talk about a comic book death, but possibly not the comic book death you were thinking of. Archie is going to have Life with Archie followed up with a new little series called Death with Archie, which means they're going to be killing off Archie Andrews in their long-running Life with Archie series about July. This is actually quite shocking. Back in 2007, they actually promised they probably wouldn't be killing off any sort of the characters. 7 years later, they've changed their mind. It happens. This is something they've said have been building up since they launched Life with Archie about 5 years ago. The book retells the story of life with Archie as an adult, and it will also show his final moments. I didn't realize what final moments were going to come 5 years later, but here we are. It's very interesting to see this, and I'm pretty sure Archie will die, but at the same time, him being the title character of many books, he's not going to be permanently dead. The story will appear in different formats. There's going to be an extra large magazine size Life with Archie number 36, and then 2 comic size issues number 36 and 37. And of course, the trade paperback will be coming later. Like I said before, this is sort of a comic book death, and this is a set in the future sort of series. I have no real feelings about this. It's interesting, but at the same time, we wonder if it's actually going to, stick. Well, that's it for this week's Multiverse Headlines. I now turn it over to my film-watching enthusiast colleague, Projectionist John. Take it away, John.
Thanks, Brian. Well, without further ado, let's dive into the movie bin and see what we've got this week. We begin today on a somber note with the deaths of 2 beloved actors. The name James Rebhorn probably wouldn't ring any bells to most of our listeners, but you would recognize his face if you saw it. A prolific character actor since 1951, when he was only 3 years old, Rebhorn has been in everything from Homeland and Basic Instinct to the Rocky and Bullwinkle movie. He died of complications from melanoma in his New Jersey home, surrounded by family. He was 65. Far more familiar to our audience will be the name of Mickey Rooney. Beginning acting when he was a teen, Rooney's career goes all the way back to the late 1930s, where he often worked alongside Judy Garland, and over the next decades pretty much worked with everyone else in Hollywood as well. Though he had apparently been ill for a while, no cause of death has been released yet. He was 93. Moving on to a more uplifting story, those of you who saw Captain America: The Winter Soldier might recall a throwaway line about a character wanting Iron Man to show up for his niece's birthday party. That bit surely must have put a smile on Robert Downey Jr.'s face, as Captain America 2 just happened to open on his actual birthday. Coincidence? Well, Downey referred to it as a, quote, cosmic miracle, and decided to celebrate it in style, by rounding up a bunch of kids and treating them to a free screening of the first Avengers' second outing. Aww. Glad to see that Tony Stark is still in the spirit of things, even this far into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Considering he's only contractually obligated for 2 more appearances, those being Avengers 2 and 3, one might think that Iron Man would be running out of steam. But apparently not when it comes to celebrating his birthday in style and putting some smiles on the faces of some lucky, lucky kids. Speaking of beloved familiar faces, sort of, it looks like Star Wars Episode 7 is determined to do things right.
Despite some speculation that he might be looking at new actors or possibly even CGI, it appears that director J.J. Abrams will be giving the beloved role of Chewbacca to the man who originated the part, the one and only Peter Mayhew. Having played the part on screen 4 times now, once in each installment of the original trilogy and once in a shoehorned-in cameo in Revenge of the Sith, there's definitely nobody better suited to fill the fuzzy shoes of Chewie than Mayhew. With this casting confirmed, it's only a matter of time before we start hearing official confirmation of the return of other characters from the original trilogy, because after all, how can one have Chewbacca without Han Solo being close behind? With some saying that filming is already beginning, I expect to hear a slew of new Star Wars casting announcements coming out within the next few weeks. And you can bet I'll be sharing them with you guys. And finally, while we're on the subject of news which comes as a relief, some of you may have heard about the pseudoscience documentary, The Principle. Trying to resurrect a scientific misconception which was put to rest by Galileo, this new movie attempts to argue that we've been getting it wrong for centuries and that the sun really does revolve around the Earth, which is the center of the universe. While it's a bit surprising that a few people on the fringe would still cling to such an antiquated belief, what came as a bigger shock to a lot of people was the familiar voice narrating the trailer for this train wreck. Kate Janeway Mulgrew herself of the Starship Voyager. While far from the most popular of Star Trek's captains, you could practically hear the gasp of disbelief the internet let out at seeing anyone from the beloved sci-fi franchise connected with such anti-science skullduggery. Fortunately, it appears that she doesn't buy into it in the slightest. Mulgrew went onto Facebook and spoke out against the creator of the film, confirms that she does not believe in the geocentrist view of the universe, and claimed that the nature of the documentary was misrepresented to her as a voice for hire. I can't tell you what a relief that is to me, even though the very existence of this documentary still makes me more in the state of scientific understanding in the world. Still, it could be worse. We could see a trailer for a Flat Earth documentary narrated by Jerry Ryan. Oh, I hope that doesn't happen now that I just said that out loud. And that's it for your movie news. Now I turn things over to our resident blast seeker for your tabletop gaming news. Take it away, Brendan.
Thanks, John, and to everyone else, welcome. As you've probably figured out by now, this is Brendan the Blast Seeker, and I'm here with your regularly scheduled summary of the state of play in the tabletop world. We've got a lot of information to cover, and only a few turns to do it in, so without, I'm afraid, any ado whatsoever, here is the current board position for all of your favorite gaming needs that don't come with a power cord. In this session, we'll be starting with another update to Yu-Gi-Oh's Forbidden and Limited lists. The second quarterly iteration of those lists took effect on April the 1st, but far from fooling around, Konami is deadly serious about keeping their flagship advanced format from getting degenerate. There are 2 new additions to the Forbidden list, those being Morphing Jar and Morphing Jar number 2. Morphing Jar is no stranger to the lists, as its powerful hand-replacing flip effect has made it a major player since the game's early years. But Morphing Jar number 2 requires a little more work to bust it in half, which is probably why this is its first appearance on the Forbidden or any other list. Both jars are now forbidden from tournament play until further notice. Next up, the Limited list has 4 changes this quarter, all of them new additions. Coach Soldier Wolfbark, Mermail Abyssgund, Rekindling, and Infernity Barrier are all limited to 1 copy per dueling deck. The semi-limited list sports 2 changes. Necroface has been moved down from Limited, and Hieratic Seal of Convocation has been added at the semi-limited position. Players are allowed 2 copies of each of those cards in their dueling decks. Finally, there are 2 cards that have been removed from the lists completely, Magical Stone Excavation and Primal Seed. Duelists that are particularly fond of those 2 cards are once again free to play the maximum of 3 copies of each per deck. Back on the expansions front, the past month may have seemed a little boring as we experienced a lull between product releases, but that ends soon. In just a few weeks, the new boosters are going to be flying fast and furious, so let's just try and get a handle on at least 2 of the soonest to drop right now while we still can. Dragons of Legend is a small 51 card expansion for the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG made of cards based on all 4 distinct series that comprise the companion animated TV show. The face of the set is a collection of cards based on the legendary dragons from the Love It or Hate It Orichalcos arc of the original series, to include the Eye of Timaeus, Legendary Knight Timaeus, and Dark Magician Girl the Dragon Knight. Very little else is known about the set at the present time, but the official street date for Dragons of Legend is Friday the 25th of April, so expect more details to become available as we get closer to that date. Meanwhile, spoiler season for Magic the Gathering's next expansion is starting to seriously ramp up, and what we're seeing so far looks pretty promising. Journey into Nyx, a 165-card small set that concludes Theros block, takes the rising tensions between gods, mortals, and monsters and escalates them straight into an all-out war. That's bad for the people of Theros, but good for us, because it means we finally get some powerful incentives to play around with the set's basic mechanics some more. The Heroic, Monstrosity, Devotion, Bestow, and Scry mechanics all return in this set, along with 2 new keywords, one for the humans and one for the gods. The humans get Strive, an additional casting cost for instant and sorcery spells that lets you choose extra targets for your spell in exchange for putting more mana into it. The gods get Constellation, a triggered ability keyword that lets you do something good for you or bad for your opponent whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control. A nice touch is that the ability is worded so that the permanent with Constellation triggers its own ability when it enters the battlefield in addition to each enchantment you cast after that, since each card with Constellation is an enchantment itself. Other things to look forward to include the completion of Theros' Pantheon with the remaining minor deities, a cycle of enchantments with Flash that can alter the game stake on an instant's notice, har har har, and the triumphant return of a Ajani Goldmane, this time as the long-awaited green-white multicolor Planeswalker. Journey into Nyx doesn't officially hit store shelves until the weekend of May the 2nd, but pre-release events are scheduled for the week before that, so there's still time to clear your schedule and find an LGS near you. Alright, that's probably enough of me ranting for now, so let's move on to the cat, who, from the sound of things, had a very interesting weekend and is just dying to share some of the details with you. That, or, just dying. Never can tell with Con Plague. Before I go, though, please let me take a moment to ask for your opinions. What did I miss or skim over that you would have rather heard more about? Alternatively, should I shut up about magic just for once in my life? Kindly direct your comments, concerns, and vitriol to our Facebook page or to my own personal address for N-Cubed correspondence, blastseeker@nerdtothethirdpower.com, and I promise I will not ignore it completely. So, until next session, this is Blastseeker Brendan reminding you that while stars in the sky, falling on your face may be your enemies, the dice are always your friends. Cat, you're up.
Thank you, kind sir. Well, I don't really actually have headlines this week. I spent my entire weekend working at Wizard World Comic Con, St. Louis version, and the only day that I did have off, I went and saw Winter Soldier, so I do apologize for not having any headlines. Instead, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my experiences at Wizard World because I attended last year and honestly I wasn't really that impressed with it. But I wanted to go this year because St. Louis had a really good guest lineup. And so I decided to volunteer because once you start working at conventions, you're usually happier when you're working them and you're being productive than when you're just attending and feeling bored. So anyway, I volunteered for 3 days, which ended up being like over 26 hours after a full week at work. So needless to say, I'm still exhausted. My feet still hurt, but it was totally worth it. They do reward their volunteers at the end of the weekend, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. When you volunteer, they sort of throw you at things and figure out what you're good at. And then whatever you're good at, you sort of stick with throughout the weekend. So if you're a good runner, they're going to have you run around. If you're good at crowd control, that's what you're gonna do. You're gonna yell at people all weekend. I ended up getting put on autograph tables for most of the weekend. In the morning, we would check wristbands and then usher people in, and then I would get sent to autograph tables. My first day, I worked Sean Astin's autograph table, probably for about 2.5 hours longer than I was supposed to, but that was cool. Saturday, I worked Eliza Dushku's table almost all day, and that was
utter chaos. But it was pretty cool because who doesn't love Eliza Dushku? Sunday, I worked mostly Ted Raimi's table because he kept going off to buy comic books, which is pretty nerdy, and that's awesome. I also worked Bruce Campbell's table for a little bit, Lou Ferrigno's, Ralph Macchio's. I feel like I'm forgetting somebody, but really cool people. And the ones who actually bothered to talk to you, like if their table was slow or something, all were pretty chill. The chillest people that I met were Ted Raimi, because of course he's like, hey, can you watch my stuff while I go buy comic books? That's pretty chill. And then Milo Ventimiglia, who was Peter Petrelli in Heroes, he was really chill. Saturday, I went around and bought my autographs that I wanted to get, and I ended up talking to Milo because his table was empty, and he was just sort of like, hey, let's talk for a bit, because he was probably bored. So we just chatted a bit, and he was interested in all the things I was talking to him about, which was mostly about my dad being a spy. And then he was like, oh, hey, meet my friend John Bernthal. And I'm like, oh, dude, isn't that guy from The Walking Dead? People paid a lot of money to meet this guy, and he just sort of came up and shook my hand. And then Milo Ventimiglia was like, hey, I see you've got a camera. Let's take a picture together. And again, people paid a lot of money for it, and it just shows you how chill a lot of these people can be. Anyway, so while I was working and doing all of this stuff, people kept coming up and saying, how did you get such a sweet gig? You know, working Sean Astin's autograph table or Eliza Dushku's autograph table. And I said, all I did was volunteer. So I'm going to take a few minutes to talk about volunteering because it is really, really important. They have a lot of staff and they're all pretty well trained because they do this all the time. I don't know how many cities they actually do the Wizard World Tour anymore, but they do this a lot. So these are people who know what they're doing, but they just can't do everything. When you have like 20,000 attendees in the building and it's stretched across this giant convention center, ours was actually in the Edward Jones Dome. So it was actually in a sports arena, which was kind of impressive. They just can't do everything themselves, so they need volunteers, and there are never, ever enough volunteers. So I'm working Eliza Dushku's table, and we've got, 2 of us doing this when it was really like a 3-person job. There just aren't enough volunteers. And I don't know why people are like, how did you get such a sweet gig? Because obviously I'm wearing a volunteer shirt that says I volunteered. How else would I have gotten such a sweet gig? All I did was step up. But anyway, volunteering is super, super easy. You just go online and fill out a form and bam. You pick your own schedule, and mind you, this is just for Wizard World. Not every convention works the same, but the way Wizard World works, you pick your own schedule, and as long as you work over 10 hours, you get your badge for free, basically. And the more days that you work, the better rewards you get at the end of the weekend. Now, at the end of the weekend, if you stay till breakdown, then they take a picture of everybody all together because you have gotten to know each and every person there. You guys are like family now because you have been through everything. So we take a big group picture, and then they line you up by the number of days that you worked and let you pick from swag. And let me tell you, their swag is some seriously good stuff. We got to pick from lanyards, t-shirts, pins, buttons, but the coolest stuff that they had left were the VIP lithographs. They have these beautiful lithographs that the people who bought VIP tickets got, depending on whose VIP ticket they got. So we got these beautiful lithographs of like William Shatner and Bruce Campbell and Nathan Fillion, and there was a ton of Nathan Fillion left over. So I took a couple. Shh, don't tell anyone. And then they also let us meet some of the artists who had been there throughout the weekend. And just these 2 particular artists, which were Arthur Sweetum, who does the Marvel Zombies, and Greg Horn, who also does Marvel stuff. I can't think off the top of my head what Marvel series he does. And they let us pick prints. We got to pick a print from each one of them. Their art is like phenomenal. They let us take their art, which is great. So big shout outs to them because they were really great. And go like them on Facebook because they're really, really great people. And that's just for volunteering. That's just for giving a little bit of your time. You get all of this cool stuff in addition to getting in for free. Oh, you also get to go around at the end of the weekend and get the guests to sign your t-shirt for free. If the guest is willing, not everybody is. And not everybody has that kind of time, and not all of the guests stay that long. But, there was a couple people who were really chill about it. Volunteering, it was a really cool experience. I really enjoyed it, but I really enjoy working at conventions. So that's just me. Totally worth it. I highly encourage everyone to volunteer if they get the chance. It's very rewarding and your help is needed. Now, unfortunately, I didn't go to any of the panels because I was working, and honestly, the lines were so long at a lot of them that I probably wouldn't have even tried to sit through them. My parents, on the other hand, if you don't know, my parents are huge nerds, especially my dad. And so my parents actually came to Comic-Con for Saturday and Sunday, and they sat through a bunch of panels. From what I understand, the funniest panel was probably Bruce Campbell and Ted Raimi just basically tearing into the audience. The greatest thing I've heard so far throughout the weekend was that Bruce Campbell took somebody's phone and called the guy's wife and said, "You're never going to see your husband again," and then hung up. And then she called back, and he was like, "You think I'm joking?" and then hung up again. And to me, that's just amazing. There was a big Doctor Who panel and a big Firefly panel, and I wish I could tell you anything that went on at them, other than that they were amazing and well attended, but I just couldn't get to anything. I did get autographs, though. I did shell out money for autographs, none of the expensive ones. I got Milo Ventimiglia and Ted Raimi, John Bernthal, Sean Astin, Adam Baldwin, and Alan Tudyk, and all of them were just really super nice people. I really have to applaud the guests, and they're so famous, and yet they can be so humble and just so relaxed and at ease around all of these screaming fans. You're coming up there and you're nervous and you don't know what to say to these big name celebrities, and they take the initiative and make conversation, and they find something to talk about with every single person who comes up. And I think that's really, really stellar. I'm sure they have tons of practice at it, but you know, they could be some a-hole, just sign the thing and go. But no, they take the time to sit there and talk to everybody as they come up. That's way more people's skills than I'll ever have, and that's pretty impressive to me. The dealer's room, of course, was really good. I didn't end up really getting anything, mostly because I didn't have enough time to walk around and really look at every booth. There was only one thing I wanted when I came in, which was something I should have gotten last year but didn't for some reason. I bought myself a nice poster of a map of Middle-earth, which I'm gonna get framed and hang up, and it'll look really great. And that was the only thing I really wanted. I thought maybe I would find like a good t-shirt or something, but this was one of the instances where I didn't have enough time, and I was so overwhelmed by the amount of choice that I was just like, you know what, forget it. I can't even deal with this. And I was really, really hella tired after working. I had a really great time over the weekend. I can't wait for next year. I'm sure it's going to be great. I'd really like to travel to more of these conventions if hotel wasn't going to be atrocious. I highly encourage, if you've never been to a big show like that, where they do spend a lot of money to get really cool people, do it just once. Just try it once. If you have the opportunity to work it, I highly recommend it. It's just a very rewarding experience, and it makes things cheaper, which is always nice. Anyway, that's enough about Comic-Con and volunteering. I will kick it back to Dr. Gonzo for some proper headlines.
All right, thank you, Kat. Our top story in the gaming world this week: a 5-year-old boy has exposed a security flaw in the Xbox One. Christopher Von Hassel of San Diego, California, hacked into his father's Xbox Live account to play games that had been locked by parental controls. Christopher told ABC 10 News that he cracked the console by entering an incorrect password and then a series of blank spaces. Christopher's father, who works in cybersecurity of all things, was anything but mad at his son's antics, and the boy is now credited on Microsoft's website as a security researcher. Well, Titanfall has been selling like hotcakes, which segues somewhat awkwardly into our next story. The Mech War Simulator received an update this week, which includes a beta test of private matches, which will support 2 to 12 players, and can be played with any of the game's maps or modes. The PC version is also receiving a security update that removes the wall hack that allowed PC players to cheat at the game. And while screenshots of the new Smash Bros. Game are circulating the web, including new arrival to the roster Greninja, it seems that a Smash Bros. 6 is already slated for release in 2015. A recruitment listing from Bandai Namco, who will be developing the new game, was seeking programmers and noted that the project currently had 120 people working on it. While the listing was quickly pulled, it does not appear to be a fake. And a Borderlands 2 follow-up is in the works, though it's not being developed by series creator Gearbox. Borderlands, the pre-sequel, to be developed by 2K Australia, will be set somewhere between the first two games, and will follow the story of Handsome Jack as he becomes the vicious sociopath we know and love from Borderlands 2. It will also be the first game not to be set on Pandora, instead taking the gunfights to Pandora's moon. No word on a release date, more as it develops. And finally, those who are unhappy with the creative liberties taken up by Sonic Boom might get a Sonic game of their own. as Team Sonic's Takashi Lizuka went on record with Japan's 4Gamer magazine that his group is working on its own Sonic game completely separate from Sonic Boom, saying, "At the moment, the core Sonic team at Sega is working on a new title that will use the traditional look and mechanics of the series, which will get more details later during the year." Rumors were floating around recently that a next-gen Sonic title was being prepped for 2015. Could this be the game Team Sonic is working on? Alright, that's all the news that's fit to hear this week. We're going to take a quick music break. When we come back, Captain America, the Winter Soldier. Is it a glorious return for the first Avenger, or is it a flop? Stay tuned, we got a lot of fun stuff ahead.
And we are back. We are going to be talking in just a few minutes about the Winter Soldier, the new Captain America movie, which is totally awesome, or is it? Gonzo had to recuse himself because he has not seen the movie yet, and everybody else saw it, right?
I saw it.
Shame on him. Yes,
Okay.
yes, for once I am
Okay.
prepared.
All right, excellent, good. So, that being said, major spoilers ahead. Abandon ship now if you haven't seen it yet, because we are going to spoil the shit out of this movie, and it's going to be awesome.
Believe us when we say that this time we really mean it. The plot of Captain America the Winter Soldier, more so than a lot of Marvel's movies, has lasting repercussions on the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So there's a reason why Gonzo scooted out the door. He kind of crab side scuttled like Zoidberg out the door when we brought this up.
Why not Zoidberg?
Why not Zoidberg?
But
All right.
seriously, though, yeah.
Yeah.
This is your last warning. Abandon ship now, because
it's kind of a big deal.
Yep.
All right. So first off, as per usual, we are going to give our general thoughts on the film, starting with Brian.
My general thought on Captain America is that it was a relatively excellent film put together. I had concerns. I wasn't sure because we've seen a little bit of Man Out of Time in the Avengers, but this is the first time we kind of got to see just Cap and just fall around Cap. And I had this huge concern that the whole Man Out of Time jokes would get really old really quick. Luckily, didn't happen because there was way more important stuff going on in the film.
Yeah, I'm pretty much, I'm gonna get on the train behind Brian on this one, because they didn't really play up the whole Man Out of Time thing. There was a lot of stuff going on, and I think the captain handled it with relative aplomb. The film flowed nicely, except for some bits that were like way out of left field. But aside from that, I mean, meshed really nicely. I thought it was a good experience.
He had the internet. See, that's the thing. Time travelers, you just need the internet and you're fine.
Pretty much. He spends a lot of nights on Wikipedia, I imagine.
I think he even brings it up in the film. Does he?
Yeah, he does.
He talks about the internet. I don't think he says Wikipedia, but
yeah,
maybe he does.
I'm with everyone else. I really liked this one. This is one of my favorites of the Marvel movies so far. I share Brian's dread with really poorly handled, like fish out of water, man out of time scenarios.
Okay, calm down.
Anyway, and they handled
Breathe,
it
John.
incredibly. Okay, I'll try. They handled it incredibly well in this movie, and not only that, but the thing that I liked about Captain America: The Winter Soldier was that they took a somewhat different direction with the Marvel superhero movie in this one, and made it a little bit more of an espionage thriller with some, kind of political aspects to it too. And I thought that was a really interesting and cool direction to take things in. And I'd kind of like to see Marvel doing a little bit more experimenting with the formula like they did in this one.
Well, that's like, it's kind of the trend, because when you think about it, the first Captain America movie was just a straight up World War II film with a superhero. So now we have like the spy thriller with a superhero.
Also true. So what would be 3 then? Legal thriller.
Legal thriller.
Court
Quick,
drama.
get me She-Hulk. I need a lawyer.
Uh-oh, the other attorney is Daredevil.
Damn it! I don't know who to root for.
Who's the plaintiff?
Well, you guys are absolutely right. I was never doubtful for a moment that this was going to be a really good movie. I was really excited about it the whole time, and I kept seeing all the reviews on Facebook. People were saying, "Oh my God, this is really great! This is really great!" So I went into it very, very excited, and came out very, very excited. And like you guys said, it has a lot of repercussions for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They name drop some stuff. They prepare you. They hint. It's gonna make everything tie in really well, and it's very, very exciting.
And of course, the biggest repercussion, especially for a certain TV series named Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., is that there is no longer a S.H.I.E.L.D.
Well, let's go ahead and get into that, because that's part of the plot and the story and everything. So one of you, I would like to volunteer and tell us the basic outline of the story.
Do you want to do it, Brian, or would you like me to do it?
Oh, you can go right ahead.
Okay. I guess Brendan could do it too.
We all
I could. But well, you're the movie guy and Brian's the comic guy. I think, either of you would probably be better suited for it. I'm perfectly capable, but...
Yeah, I didn't just want to, steamroller over you there. I'm like, okay, Brendan, get out of the way. Brian,
Bitch move. My time.
Okay, so, the Captain America: The Winter Soldier, takes place, obviously a little while after Avengers. Cap is starting to try to readjust, to life in the 21st century. But he still goes on missions for S.H.I.E.L.D. because that's kind of what he does. But in the course of the movie, even after his first mission, where he and Black Widow, who I loved in this movie, by the way, he and Black Widow are rescuing S.H.I.E.L.D. hostages from a ship that's been taken over by pirates and mercenaries. He is starting to question S.H.I.E.L.D.'s motives and S.H.I.E.L.D.'s honesty with him, as he finds out in the course of that mission that Black Widow was given a different mission that he wasn't even told about, and then later on in the movie finds out that the entire mission was even more questionable than that. And Cap is a very straightforward, honest guy. He believes in shooting straight with people, and he doesn't like all of this espionage and layers of deception that basically is Nick Fury's bread and butter. So he's starting to become kind of disenchanted with S.H.I.E.L.D. Then an attempt is made on Nick Fury's life, and it turns out that maybe S.H.I.E.L.D. isn't exactly what Nick Fury thought it was either. As the movie goes on, it turns out that S.H.I.E.L.D. has been thoroughly infiltrated by Hydra, which has survived in secret since the events of the original Captain America: The First Avenger. I nearly called it Captain Avenger: The First America. But Hydra has thoroughly infiltrated S.H.I.E.L.D. and is using this latest program to send up some shooty kill you planes into the atmosphere. Yeah, I explain things good. They're designed basically to neutralize threats even before they occur. S.H.I.E.L.D. was going to use them as, like, you know, anti-terrorism measures. Hydra is going to use them as anti-whatever is a threat to Hydra, and that's about 1 billion people measures. And I know that I'm grossly oversimplifying things and rushing along through the plot. Basically, Cap has to stop Hydra's plan. And along the way, he's accompanied by Black Widow, who kind of serves as his foil because she represents the various shades of gray in the world of subterfuge that Cap doesn't like to deal with. And he also makes friends with Falcon, who's introduced to the Marvel Universe in this movie. And I will readily admit I was caught off guard by that because I did not know that was Falcon when they introduced him right in the first scene of the movie. I didn't put 2 and 2 together until he showed up with his wings, in fact, because I am dense like that.
Really?
Like,
you didn't even figure it out when they had the folder on the table with the words Falcon splashed all over it?
I didn't recognize him without that costume.
Truth be told, the actor who plays Falcon, he was disappointed there wasn't a costume. He was like, I wanted the goddamn costume.
Maybe they'll give Falcon his costume in the future. That's my hope. Maybe he'll show up in Avengers too. Who else? I feel. Oh yes, the Winter Soldier. I knew there was someone I was forgetting.
It's some important. Nah. We must have hit all.
It's not
the
like his
important
name's in the
characters
title.
Despite having his name in the title, he's actually kind of a minor character in the grand scheme of the movie, in the sense that he's really more of a pawn than anything else. He's a brainwashed pawn of Hydra. Probably the worst kept secret about this whole movie was the identity of the Winter Soldier, because it was basically impossible at this point, after the comics and everything, for anybody not to know that the Winter Soldier is Bucky.
That, and when you announce, hey, Sebastian Stan is in this film, people are like, oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Who in the trailer?
The Winter Soldier is this badass mercenary who is deployed by Hydra basically when they need shit done, and shit done permanently. He's thawed out for missions and put back in the freeze when he's not needed, and brainwashed repeatedly in between so that he does not remember who he really is. And of course, you have to have this moment where Cap like stares in shock as he realizes that's Bucky. And that's the other big undercurrent of this theme, you know, Cap trying to did I say undercurrent of this theme?
Yeah.
Well, pretend I didn't. Cap trying to reach out to his childhood best friend, whom he is sure still exists within this man-made monster that he has to face. And you know, the movie sets up Bucky to find to start his own journey to reconnect with his identity, and now that he's by the end of it, he's mostly broken free of Hydra.
So, what did you guys think of the script itself?
Well,
So we talked about how, yeah, it's more of a spy story than the last one being a war story. So how well do you think that played out? I mean, we've already said it's really cool that it was different. How well do you think it played out?
I think for me, I thought it played out extremely well because it was paced at such a way that even though you had like the big action moments still had enough breathing space between them that you weren't completely overwhelmed. And in a spy thriller, which is sort of, you kind of think of those as the thinking man's some thinking man's movies where you too are trying to figure out the mystery behind it. So you kind of have this good time of a break as the story continues for you to go, okay, where is it going to go next? How is it going to go? What's the next clue? And things like that. I only had one, not even really a major complaint, but a minor complaint with the script later on in the third act, when all the big ties are coming together and all the big strings are being pulled and you get to see it unravel. I felt like the final act, like the final big hurrah, was way too similar to the first movie's big hurrah moment. If I may, I have a list of the things that happened in both films that were basically the same thing.
Okay, go ahead.
They attack a Hydra-controlled base, which at this time was the S.H.I.E.L.D. HQ in Washington, D.C. Cap has to fight his way onto the super weapon, which was, in this case, the flying helicarriers. He fights on the super weapon to defeat common bad guys. He did that in the first one as well. Then he fights the antagonist in the control bay. The super weapon gets destroyed and he falls into water. And then I kind of sat there going like, this looks cool. I feel like I've seen this before though. Like it was sort of like a retread of ground.
And I think, and this may be just me, but I kind of felt like maybe that was on purpose, because they had talked about, when you find out in the movie that Hydra has infiltrated S.H.I.E.L.D. and has for a long time, and they basically told Captain America that his death in stopping Hydra had been meaningless. That he hadn't actually achieved anything because Hydra lived on, and it lived on within S.H.I.E.L.D. And that's a big deal. So I kind of felt like by sort of going through a lot of that again, and him falling into water to his what could have been his death, was his death meaning something this time.
I can definitely see that. It just seemed for me like just a lot of retreading though. Like, and that again, it wasn't like it was bad or anything. It was a great sequence, but when you see it and you see it again, you're just like, oh, I don't know, kind of weird to see it for the second time. But of course, history repeats itself always, because fucking S.H.I.E.L.D. Herrick, 3 of them this time, crash because they always do. Stop making them.
It's actually worth pointing out that the head honcho Kevin, how do you pronounce his last name, Brian? Is it Feige? Feige?
I'm pretty sure we were both screwing it up, so sorry, Kevin. I'm
Okay,
sure it's listening to the show.
K-Dog. It's worth pointing out that I learned that apparently some of the ways these movies get plotted is he will have like this really cool mental image and he'll present it to the screenwriters. So in this case, he said, yeah, a bunch of helicarriers crashing. And the writers actually came up with the plot around that idea. So sometimes these things are set in stone by forces of nature in the Marvel universe that get paid a lot of money.
It's such a thing. Like reading comics for so many years, every time I see the helicarrier, I was like, when is it going down?
If I were Nick Fury by this point, I wouldn't even set foot on one of those.
He's like, why do we keep fucking building these?
And letting them be over any kind of populated anywhere, like seriously.
Like in this case, the nation's capital. Yeah, I can see this not going wrong. But yeah, but in terms of that was my only real complaint with the script. But that's a very good point that this retreading was probably done on purpose. Now that I think about it, I'll see the movie again and make sure.
So what did you guys think of the big, and this is the thing that's probably going to affect most of the franchises the most, is the essential destruction of S.H.I.E.L.D.
I admit that is possibly the boldest thing I've seen them do in the Marvel Cinematic Universe so far, because it's been a fixture since the original Iron Man. S.H.I.E.L.D. brought the Avengers together in the first place. It's kind of been the tie that binds the whole thing. So to just outright, flat out say we've destroyed it is a pretty ballsy move.
Especially because we have an entire show based on people who work for this organization, and we recently
Man, season 2 is going to be weird.
Oh my god. And we had just gotten to see Agent Sitwell in the show, only to find out that he's been a member of Hydra this whole time. What the fuck? It was so bizarre.
Now, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, that having been said, since it has been established that Nick Fury lies and his secrets have secrets, and he just piles on the levels of espionage and subterfuge, it could be entirely possible that S.H.I.E.L.D. has only ceased to exist in the same way that Torchwood ceased to exist after the Daleks versus the Cybermen in Doctor Who, which is maybe going deeper underground than it was before.
I don't believe S.H.I.E.L.D's gone because Nick Fury's there. wherever Nick Fury goes, there's S.H.I.E.L.D. So when it's going to be weird how they're going to try to like bring that back up because not only is S.H.I.E.L.D. not gone, Hydra's still not gone because they're like, hey, we still got other Hydra places. They've kind of spread around these last several decades. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, look at all the cool shit we got now.
We got Loki Scepter. We got Loki Scepter. And it's
say
also
nothing
worth
of
noting that Nick has an advantage in this, in that most of the world thinks he is dead and buried under a tombstone with a Pulp Fiction quote on it. So there's that.
So there's that. Do we want to say anything else about the script?
I liked all the. Oh, I'm sorry. I keep stepping on you, Brendan.
It's fine. I just wanted to say that I thought it was, well crafted in terms of, the witty repartee that we've come to expect from Marvel films. So, I mean, the dialogue wasn't necessarily all boring expository stuff. There's a good deal of, character development and just cutting back and forth in there too.
It wasn't as funny as I was expecting it to be because it ended up being more cerebral than anything else. And I think that really worked out well because it was such a serious film. It wasn't Avengers where it's all, dry wit and everybody getting together and hanging out. It was a little darker, I'd say.
Oh,
But
definitely darker.
There wasn't quite as much of it,
Yeah.
but what was there was really, really good, I felt. Like, all the little, like, my personal favorite bit of comedic wit was when they were starting up that creaky old computer in, that S.H.I.E.L.D. base underneath Cap's old, training camp. And, as it was coming online, Black Widow makes the war game reference. She's like, "Let's play a game," and like she turns to Cap and she's like, "That was a movie." And he's like, "I saw it."
I really, really love the chemistry between the two characters and the way it was written, so that that they can be friends and allies without it being romantic.
I know that was.
There was, I think
it was
what happened.
so amazing.
Yeah, what happened? I think I was reading that their scenes together when they weren't like story-based scenes when they're looking for that algorithm, but with them just kind of chatting back and forth. Scarlett Johansson and Chris Evans wrote their own dialogue basically.
Oh, good.
So they probably just showed up on cast like, this is the scene. Like, okay, what do you think about this line? What do you think about this line? What do you think about this line? Okay, and then that's what you got.
I loved the running gag of her constantly trying to fix him up with these different girls that she knew. That I thought I thought was kind of cute.
That's how you know that they're really good friends, and it's like them trying to stay away from like pushing a romantic angle because so many of the movies have to have an element of romance in there. We've got Pepper Potts and what was her name in Hulk? What is her name? Betsy Ross.
Betsy Ross.
Betty Ross.
Yep.
Which one is it?
Liv Tyler.
Liv Tyler, and whichever one wasn't in A Really Old President's Wife, Betty or Betsy, I'm not sure. Anyway, and so you have like those romantic scenes that are sort of like required for all of these movies, and here it didn't exist. It sort of showed up in its very, very sad, depressing way, but it was closure that we kind of felt we needed with his old girlfriend. What was her name? Peggy Carter, yeah. You kind of got a closure with him and her as a couple, and that was really fucking depressing.
Oh,
I tell
God,
you.
that was like the most heart-wrenching thing, but I'm glad they addressed it.
Yeah, it was necessary. Necessary evil.
Necessary feels.
The necessary feels of evil. So we kind of got that out of the way, and then we didn't have to have any kind of romance for it anymore because there was already so much going on and so many different character interactions that were being addressed, and I'm just really, really glad that they didn't push these two characters together.
Yeah, it's a good message. It's a good message, Captain. You can be single for a little while. Give yourself some me time in between.
and you don't have to be together with the only girl character.
Yeah, and
Yeah, seriously.
it's fine to talk to your neighbor, who may be kind of pretty, who may or not be a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent hired to keep you safe, that you didn't know about.
But you know
I thought
what?
that was a good touch too, because it added that extra little wrinkle to the whole Nick Fury just can't be straight and honest with anyone angle.
Right.
And to Captain's, growing trust issues with S.H.I.E.L.D.
Well, we kind of talked a lot about the story, so why don't we go ahead and talk about the cast? We'll start with the big man himself, Chris Evans, as Captain America. Did he do a good job reprising the role?
I want to notice, yes, he did, but also, is his shoulders getting bigger every movie?
Yes, I noticed it too. His arms looked massive. I think after hanging out with Chris Hemsworth, he's like, I can do better.
That's closer. That's actually very close to the truth, because I have read some things from Chris Hemsworth where he talked about meeting Chris Evans, and Chris Evans was like, "How do you even get that big?" I think his exact words were like, "Fuck, dude." He has Thor envy.
He does have the one. He's admitted it. That he feels like, yeah, I'm a superhero, and then Chris Hemsworth walks in and he's actually a god.
But shoulder size aside, he did I think like Chris. This is kind of showing that Chris has been a really, really like underrated actor, because some of his early roles were unfortunately in crap movies, like
Fantastic Four.
And Fantastic Four too. Bless you. So like for him to get a role, because the first role was, was more of a, I'm standing up for what I believe in, and here he gets to do the, what do I believe in? Because what do I believe in still here? So you get to see this conflict, and then when like the sort of the light bulb turns on later in the third act, he's like, no, this is what we're doing. This is the right thing to do. You're gonna follow me, or I will decapitate you with my shield. And everyone's like, I'm gonna follow Captain America. I don't know about you guys.
I don't want to
no shield, but there will be no shield, but my shield.
So yeah, he got to stretch out, I think, his acting chops here, and it really was, and he did a fantastic job with it.
I think my only, and this is like just the minorest complaint I can imagine, because I think he was phenomenal in this movie. My only complaint is that his hair changed slightly, and it sort of looked more like Chris Evans and less like Captain America to me. If that makes any sense at all.
I didn't even notice that, but I could very easily write that off as like Black Widow talking him into getting a modern haircut.
Yeah, because I think his hair, it must have been like different while he was jogging, and then one time he took off his helmet and he had helmet hair, and I was like, your hair suddenly looks more like Chris Evans and less like Steve Rogers, because he had like the same haircut pretty much from Captain America to the Avengers, and it was sort of, that's how I picture him now, and that's sort of the singular image that I have. And for him to change his hair just sort of like broke my world.
It could be worse. It could have been like, I wasn't the biggest fan of Black Widow's hair, like the super straight. It's red in some scenes, orange in another scene.
I'm with you on that. Her hair kind of bothered me in this movie.
Her hair changes drastically every single movie.
Yeah, that's true.
Because her like super curly hair in Iron Man 2, where I'm like, you are a super spy. You do not have that much time in your life to do your hair like that. Seriously,
that's how good she is.
She's such a super spy. She actually can do her hair so fast.
She is curling while she is breaking your neck.
And she probably kills people with the curling iron later, which would not surprise me at all.
Like, and was Scarlett Johansson, I thought, I maybe need a little bit more time, because they're being uber vague about like her character, but like the times that she was there, I think did very well.
Why don't they just give her own movie already?
Because she's pregnant.
Been asking for it, and now the fans are asking for it.
Yeah.
So there's
It's
gonna happen eventually.
Yeah, they keep saying we're developing it, and she's like, well, I'm gonna go have a kid. You keep developing it. Get
I'm
back to me
developing
soon.
a human being right now.
Seriously, all they have to do is get her and Jeremy Renner into a movie together, and they can just call it Budapest, and the fans will die. It will be amazing.
Speaking of Jeremy Renner, notable in his absence in this movie.
Yeah,
Right.
What is he doing
Yeah.
right now?
he had to go revisit Budapest.
Probably.
I read that he was in earlier drafts of the script, but there was so much going on that they felt they couldn't do justice to him, so they just kind of wrote him out. And there may even have been like a little line of dialogue about where he was and what he was doing, but that didn't make it in either. Of course, someone else pointed out to me that the timeline of this movie was really, really short. Like, it only took place within 2 or 3 days. So I could easily see, given that limited window, why Hawkeye wouldn't be able to be brought in on this, especially if he was on another mission in some far-flung corner of the world, and Hydra didn't even want him to know about this. Or,
yeah, not to mention that, like, pretty much very quickly into it, they are cut off from any communication because
Exactly.
S.H.I.E.L.D. is hunting them. So they wouldn't have been able to sound up the alert to anybody. It was pretty much Captain Falcon and the Black Widow all on their own, trying to battle their own, and that's pretty awesome. So speaking of Falcon, because we've kind of touched on the other two, let's talk about Falcon a little bit. Since we were all kind of surprised that Falcon was in this because there was no costume.
Well, I knew Falcon was going to be in it because Captain America and Falcon are like BFFs. I'm pretty sure there'll be a shipping war about these two later. I know our friend Kevin Balk. I follow his Tumblr. He says he ships them, so I can believe it.
he ships some air.
But so I knew he was going to be the film. I just didn't know exactly how they were going to sort of like incorporate him. So, like, and he did. Again, he's one of those guys. He got a little bit of backstory, and then he didn't really shine until about the third act because he was off doing his own thing. In the third act is where you really get to see Falcon be Falcon. I felt like when he was first introduced in like the beginning. Okay, that's kind of cool. And he was introduced being a little bit later, talking to other former soldiers and things like that. It wasn't until the third act when he's running around with Captain that you get to see a bit more personality with him. So I wish there was a little bit more, like, because I think he could do a lot with this character. But again, there was a lot going on, so it was fun to see him later in the film get some sort of characterization.
So is he kind of, Captain America's version of Rhodey to Iron Man? Because I didn't see a whole lot of his personality come out, and I sort of felt like this was their version of Rhodey. And I really, really enjoyed the character, and I really like how rounded out his story was, how they introduced him, and how they brought him back in. Everything was very logical. It all made sense. There was no lapse of judgment there. But I just don't know how distinguished he made himself in the film, just based on how much screen time he got.
That's a good comparison, and in the sense he is sort of Cap's roadie. So I'm not sure exactly where their relationship sort of will go from this point on. Mostly because I think while Iron Man and Rhodey, like, yeah, they're best friends, Rhodey just hates Tony, like, a lot some days.
Well, to be fair, some days it's kind of hard not to hate Tony.
Yeah. Here there's an actual, like, a budding friendship going on. Like, I like you too. You don't piss me off. Thank you.
Bro fist.
That's because, let's face it, Tony Stark is an asshole. Who
Tony
just happens to be a good superhero.
Tony Stark is more entertaining when you don't have to encounter him in real life.
Yeah, like in a professional situation, he's a nightmare, and unfortunately, that's what Rhodey has to deal with most of the time.
I will say this, as long as we're bringing up comparisons to Rhodey, please do not replace him with another actor in the next movie.
Oh, that would be so sad. I don't think they'll do that.
I really hope not, because I really like Falcon in this movie.
So
I read up a little bit on his character's comic backstory. little odd, but I really like him
Welcome to
in
comics.
this movie.
Welcome to
So
comics.
don't replace Falcon with another character in the next Captain America movie. Is what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't
That's
replace
not-
Rhodey either. That would be terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rhodey's been
that's-
through enough,
that's-
man.
Let's stop replacing people.
Mhm. Yes, the last thing we need is for any of the Avengers roles to turn to the Defense Against the Dark Arts post.
Well put.
We've talked about most of the good guys. Let's talk about some of the bad guys. What was the name of the office-y bad guy?
The one that
Oh,
Robert
the one
Redford
played by
plays?
Robert Redford?
Yeah, the one played by
Alexander Pierce, right?
Alexander Pierce. Let's talk about that douche.
Oh God, what a
And-
douche!
And here is where the movie got a little cerebral for me, because you sort of get the impression that he's hiding something and that he's a douche. But there are a couple of times before the big reveal that he is the uber douche that you think you might have misjudged him.
Yeah.
I like that.
And I thought that was really well done, that you sort of, it gives it again that spy thriller kind of feel, where you go, I think he's the bad guy, because they've been putting people in suits as the bad guys now, with Iron Man 2 and 3 and all that. And so it was sort of going, he's probably the bad guy because he seems like he has like no moral compass. And then there's a couple of moments where you think, oh man, his life is legitimately in danger now. Maybe he's not the bad guy. Maybe I misjudged. No, he's the bad guy.
I was a little disappointed by the revelation that he was the bad guy, because I was kind of picking up, and I was trying to decide for myself. I was trying. Let me rewind that thought a little bit. As I was watching, I was picking up hints that he might be the bad guy, but at the same time, I know this kind of story. I was also thinking he might be a red herring. They're dropping hints both ways, that he could be an asshole, or he could be not an asshole. But when it turned out he just straight up was, I was a little disappointed, because I kind of wanted him to go an extra twist with this. I would have liked it if maybe he had turned out to be a red herring, and someone really innocuous had turned out to be the mastermind, like I don't know, the girl with the laundry in Captain America's apartment. She would have been a cool revelation for like the villainous mastermind behind everything. I will say this. Whereas I was a little bit disappointed by the revelation with Robert Redford's character when Emile Zola showed up again.
Holy shit.
Oh wow.
I remember reporting in one of my headlines, at least I think I reported in my headline. If I didn't report on it, I read it somewhere that he was going to be featured somehow in this movie, but I had forgotten it by the time I actually sat down to watch it. And the way he was reintroduced was both surprising and really freaking creepy.
Oh my god.
You're standing in my
Right.
brain. What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That creepy ass, like partially rendered face on that computer screen, and that Dalek-y voice with the German accent.
Yeah.
It was just, oh man.
200,000 square feet of computers.
He is my pick for the best villain of this piece, even though he was in it so briefly, just because of how freaking creepy he was.
Basically, just Mr. Exposition for this.
Yeah, I mean, all
particular-
he does is exposit, but and stall them because he's planning to get them blown up. But even so, and it's also, he's the one who gets to deliver all the sickest burns to Cap as well. He's the one who tells him your death meant nothing. You didn't beat us. We're frankly we're stronger than ever. And you're still gonna die, and sucks to be you. Paraphrasing slightly.
What's great about
Nanny nanny boo boo, we win.
What's great about this is that in Captain America, he didn't seem that twisted. because he was sort of a lackey, and he was just, this scientist who built the shit, and you knew he was crazy because he wanted to see crazy shit being built, but you kind of felt like, he was pressured a lot by the Red Skull to do terrible things, and, he was just sort of the Weasley character who just went along with stuff for self-preservation purposes. You got that impression about him. And then you see his nature just being twisted and taken to this whole other level. And you see a new side to this villain. And it's totally, totally insane.
Yeah. I agree with you completely. In the original movie, he almost looked sane next to Red Skull. But that's still damning with faint praise, because it's not hard to look sane when you're standing next to the Red Skull.
I mean, the Red Skull was sort of like a zealot, just about himself.
Yeah.
And then, you got Toby Jones here, and he's just, crazy, but like a genius.
Uh-huh.
And now you see that, yes, he's a crazy genius, and it's horrifying, and it's probably more horrifying than the Red Skull.
In a lot of ways, I would definitely agree with that.
Now, I would like to point out, this is a very minor character, and I actually don't even believe he actually made it into the film, but the beginning on the ship, the pirate that actually took over the ship, that's a character from the comics, and I almost missed his name, but then I heard it, and it's Batok. Batok the Leaper. He looks nothing like the character in the comics. He had no handlebar mustache.
Had a handlebar mustache in the comics?
Yeah, well, not handlebar, but wrong mustache. But no, he had like the tiny French mustache that you could probably twirl.
Oh my god!
And he doesn't even have superpowers. His gimmick is he can jump really far.
Jump good.
He jumped good. Now, I'm bringing this up because when I saw this, I was like, this is gonna be... I was kind of like, oh, Batok? What are you doing here? Then I saw who was playing him, which was a former UFC welterweight fighter, George St. Pierre. So at that point, I was like, oh, please tell me he fights Captain. Because now I want to see what's going to happen.
See, thank you for elaborating that, because I'd forgotten about it until just now. I felt like he must have been a significant figure from the comics, or at least a figure from the comics, because of how they kept bringing up his name, and because of the fact that he was actually able to hold his own in a fight against Cap. I'm like, this is a guy. This is totally a guy. I don't know who this guy is, but this is totally a guy.
Now, before we get into too many of the guys, because there were a lot of names dropped and a lot of hints made, let's talk a little bit. I know we kind of already talked a little bit about the Winter Soldier himself, but let's talk a bit about Sebastian Stan, because his character was pretty awesome.
His shoulders also got bigger.
Yeah.
Yep.
One of them artificially so.
Yes. Well, I was about to say the metal arm might have something to do with that.
Yeah. Unfortunately, he didn't get a lot to say. He did a lot, but he didn't get a lot to say. And other than towards sort of the end, and I think that was his purpose though, because the Winter Soldier is a big deal. So to have him be sort of a minor antagonist, seems low on the card for him. He's a minor antagonist because we get to find out who he is, what's going on, so he can be the main antagonist later. So, I'm kind of glad this is sort of his introduction. Now shit gets real, kind of thing.
So, I'm not terribly familiar with the comics. So, tell me a little bit about how the Winter Soldier is presented in the comics and, compared to how they're doing it in the movie.
This is it's very faithful, I want to say. Of course, they take a few liberties here and there, but nothing too terrible. Yes, in the comics, Bucky does survive, but Cap does not know it. He is eventually picked up by the Russians and sort of experimented on. That's where he gets sort of the metal hand and things like that. He gets brainwashed and such. In the movie, it's Hydra, recaptures him, and then that's how it happens. Winter Soldier was basically, you could call him Captain USSR if you wanted to, because that's who he was when he first started, and eventually he sort of goes rogue. But yeah, he had no idea who he was. No one knew who he was. He was sort of this ghost assassin. He was really good at his job, and eventually what does happen is that he does Captain finally sort of breaks through to him, and in this film you see the sort of start of that. But yeah, like the idea of him being brainwashed and being basically another super soldier who's genetically made that way is very true. So I'm imagining the next movie will be a major emotional roller coaster for him, because he's figuring out who he is, like, and breaking the brainwashing and yeah, being frozen like every year, which can't be good for your health.
No, I imagine not. So
You actually bring up something that just now occurred to me to question, though. You mentioned that in the comics it was the Russians who turned him into the Winter Soldier originally, and in this movie you still have holdovers from that. He's got the red scar on one arm. They mentioned that his rounds are all Soviet, and even the name, the Winter Soldier, has Russian connotations. Do they offer any justification for all of those Russian connotations in this movie when they're saying that it's Hydra who did this to him?
That's the thing, though. Like you see Hydra at that, I think that one stage when he's having that flashbacks, when like before they brainwash him again. You see that it's Hydra that has sort of control over him. It could be they don't mention the Russians at all in the film. So the answer to your question is like, no, they have no justifications other than the fact that he worked for the Russians, like, because he was sort of I guess leased out to other members around the world. So obviously this Hydra somewhere in Russia. It just could be like, for the at least in terms of the movie, is that they made that hit maybe a scapegoat. Like, we'll blame it on the Russians, like, because Hydra wants to keep themselves secret. So if they have an assassin going around leaving like Hydra like breadcrumbs all over the place, well, that's not good. They're going to lead it right back to them, and all their plans go up in smoke. So it could just be, all right, we'll give them some Russian things, Russian training. If anyone asks, we'll be like, yeah, it's the Russians' fault. It's all totally their fault. Those crazy Russians.
because we could never stop blaming the Russians.
Yeah,
You know, that would actually be kind of brilliant during the Cold War era, because I can totally see people just buying that straight up.
And let's face it, like, his job was to basically start shit to keep turmoil in the world, to keep killing people, basically. Starting shit, making wars continue so that people will die. So that we can eliminate evil in the world, I guess. Or eliminate chaos by murder and chaos.
That always works.
And let's face it, Russia's kind of a shit starter, so who better to blame?
Political statement.
Yeah, so it's in this movie. That's fan theory. It might be. You could call it headcanon at this point, because I literally just came up with that at the top of my head right now, because I didn't think about it until you asked the question. It's like, wait, yeah, Hydra was. Why is he a Winter Soldier?
Because it was really cold when he fell in the water.
Yeah. Well, I guess winter.
And they keep him frozen.
Keep him frozen.
So...
He's our Winter Soldier. Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
So correct me if I'm wrong. Hasn't Sebastian Stan been signed on for like 9 more movies?
Yes, there's a good reason for that.
Because he's going to be Captain America.
Ta-da! Wow, you're good. Because in the comics, eventually there's the death of Captain America, where Captain America gets killed. Don't worry, he comes back. Spoilers. But
wait, what? A superhero dies in a comic and comes back?
Oh,
what?
You should listen to my headlines. There's a comic character dying recently that I'm not sure is actually going to come back, and you'll be surprised too. It's not a superhero. It's Archie.
Oh yeah.
What?
Oh, yeah.
Topic for another day, but yeah. So
Why did we just reveal that we record this show out of order?
That's okay. We can edit this.
Oh, this is totally getting edited back.
Shit. Okay. Anyway. And yeah, because in the comics, Bucky eventually takes over the mantle of Captain America, and Chris Evans has said after his film deal, which was like he had like signed on like a 6 movie deal, which to me sounds ridiculous. And so, but once that ends, he's like, all right, I might take a break from acting. I might try directing, because every actor says that. So it's obviously the storyline eventually becomes, Bucky and Sebastian will be the new Captain America.
So
when will that happen? I don't know.
How many movies does I heard he has 3 movies left.
So we have Avengers 2.
Counting Avengers 8, yes.
So let's start with Avengers 2. So he's in Avengers 2, obviously. He's obviously going to be in Captain America 3, whatever the title of that will be. And then I'm guessing the only one left is probably the third Avengers.
So then they'll probably kill him off in the third Avengers, and then after that, it'll all be Bucky.
Now, if only they were setting up a threat for the third Avengers, which could cause death on such a massive scale as to create a believable demise for Captain America. Perhaps an entity who worships death, perchance.
I couldn't figure out who you were talking about. What on earth?
What is this silliness which is issuing forth from my mouth hole?
Was it? Right? Didn't we say it last time? It was Hellboy, right?
It's
yeah.
Totally doesn't look like Hellboy though. Just in that one frame of his face.
Now,
no, you're right.
Yeah, when you say it now, yeah. But yeah, so that's kind of going.
It's not help. It's
Okay, so before we stop talking about the cast, because we've been talking about the cast for forever now, let's talk a little bit about some of the small characters and the name drops that we heard, because obviously they're setting up some characters for future films. So let's talk about that a little bit.
The only one, because I'm trying really hard, the only one that really stuck out, purposely, almost if the character should have looked to the camera and said it, was Stephen Strange, Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was so obvious. I swear the guy should just turn we're looking for everyone, including Stephen Strange. Ding!
Look him up on Wikipedia.
We Wikipedia'd everybody, including Stephen Strange. That would be great. So wait, because there was the bad guy who should have definitely been blown up on one of the falling ships, and they definitely had him in an ambulance. So whoever that was, I can't even remember because there was so many people and they were all blowing up. That had to have been deliberate. So that's a future villain. So who's that?
The squad leader, I thought, wasn't it? Who was in Captain America's team on the ship at the very beginning, later became, one of the guys that fought hardest to get him captured. He and the Falcon were engaged in, basically outrun the fireball moment at the very end of the movie with one of the helicarriers crashing into the building. Falcon got out, he didn't. And
he definitely was burned to a crisp, but they did show him with somebody giving him air and getting put into an ambulance. So they showed that so deliberately, so he must survive to become a villain.
It's I know who it is. I figured it out because I remember his name. His name is Brock Rumlow. His villain name is Crossbones. He is an adversary to Captain America. You will know him mostly because he's friggin' gigantic, wears a mask, and he has crossbones on his chest. So yeah, yeah. So he is. So that's obviously that's who that is. So I don't know when he'll show back up, but yes, good catch.
I'm trying to remember if there was anything else, because those two were the ones that I really noticed.
Well, there was the mid-credits scene, which we haven't talked about much.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's talk about the stingers.
Right. I mean, well, the one, obviously, Bucky in the museum, setting up the next Captain America movie, but the one that, that's really, really interesting is, the meteor one, the twins. Where we got what looks like Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch.
And here is where I kind of get on my comic book soapbox, because I am not thrilled with this introduction. The reason I'm not thrilled with this introduction is because Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch are mutants. They've always been mutants. always will be mutants. But because the fucking X-Men franchise is held hostage by 20th Century Fox, Marvel cannot use mutants in their movies. So, this scene establishes that Hydra somehow created these people or gave them their powers through some weirdo means, which I think is kind of bullshit to the characters.
Well, not entirely. It's not certain, based on the context of that scene, I think, that Hydra gave them their powers. It's certain, of course, that they're in Hydra custody, but it's not clear to me from the context of the scene that this means that Hydra gave them superpowers or that Hydra tracked them down as superpowered individuals and, like, held on to them for potential, study, research, brainwashing, weapon usage, etc.
This is Hydra, and every instance we've seen is them experimenting on people.
Exactly.
So it's a pretty safe bet.
And it looked like they were, well, at least Quicksilver, it looked like he was struggling with his powers, like he couldn't control them, as Scarlet Witch became uber creepy.
That's right.
Yeah.
He was struggling with his powers, and she seemed absolutely fascinated with hers. You do have a point there.
Yeah. So, and now again, like I don't. This is just me slamming down, going, God damn it, people, continuity. And at the same time, I their backs are against the wall. They're not allowed to use mutants because they can't read contracts. Or at least they couldn't before. So to see that, I was like, so my hope was like they would just show up, and just be like, yeah, I've always had these powers, or I had them as these are my gift. Just call them like a gift, because that's what Professor X says. I was like, yeah, but then to see it like, oh, so wait, you guys got the okay. I mean, I'm still going to see the film, but it's asterisks next to your names. You also have a stupid costume, Quicksilver.
Well, it's unfortunate because the weirdest thing about this situation, is that both 20th Century Fox and Marvel Studios have rights to Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch because they're parts of two separate franchises, and both of the film franchises that have the rights to them are going to be using them.
Yeah.
So,
at the same time.
Same time.
So weird.
Different actors, different origins, but Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch are confirmed to be in Days of Future Past.
You can already see Quicksilver in really terrible Carl's Jr.'s commercials.
Yeah, and you can see how dumb he looks.
It's up.
It's okay. Either way, they're gonna butcher Quicksilver, no matter which it is, because both of them look really hella dumb.
It's what Kat said.
But in any case, the scene set that this going back, the actual scene sets up the excitement because we know they're coming and they're going to be a part of Avengers 2 along with Ultron, which I really need this. Like, is Ultron going to be set up in Guardians of the Galaxy? Because they have not set up Ultron yet, and I'm getting worried because that film's like what, next year?
Yeah.
Isn't there going to be an Ant-Man movie at some point?
But the problem is they've said in the Ant-Man movie that Hank Pym will not be the creator of Ultron. He's the creator of Ultron in the comics. And also Hank Pym is played by I forgot his name already, but he's a really good Kirk Douglas?
Kirk Douglas?
What?
Maybe not.
I don't think it's Kirk Douglas.
Okay, in any case, he's a famous actor, but he's playing Hank Pym, but he's playing like the old version, so there's going to be a new Hank Pym. I'm all sorts of... Not a new Hank Pym, but there's going to be another Ant-Man. There's going to be two Ant-Mans and one Ant-Man movie. I'm confused already.
Wait,
and I read comics. Yes, I read comics.
Okay. So
my guess is that Tony Stark is going to make Ultron.
Because he's a dick like that. Anyway. Anyway, so that was like the middle stinger. Then it was always the final stinger, which I still saw people walk out of the theater for.
Yeah, I do too. What's up with that?
No one read those people are the few people that actually don't read the internet.
Yeah.
You know what I want to see? I was saying as my roommate and I were walking out after that movie, I want to see if they ever actually make a Deadpool movie for real, them to have a stinger at the end of the credits that's just like him sitting on the couch with like a Deadpool comic book and he just like puts it down. He's like, why are you still here? That's what I want.
Like a Ferris Bueller, right?
You can leave
Why
now.
are you still here? Go home.
Okay, so we've talked way more than enough about casting. Let's talk very briefly, because we've already talked way too long, about the visual effects. Now, I'm just gonna say this right now. So we all know how in the 2009 Star Trek, like every action scene had, Kirk hanging off of something, and he was like dangling and holding on for dear life. So this movie did that, but with breaking through panes of glass.
There was a lot of glass broken.
So much glass.
Was,
it was like,
yeah.
Even when you thought that they could not possibly have more glass left in the world to break, he just goes through yet another pane of glass. Like, so many windows. Like, wherever this was filmed, like, the stocks rose for glass. There's so much broken. I can't emphasize enough how they overused that.
I will say this about the visual effects. The visual effects were good, except for old Peggy Carter. Because when old Peggy Carter started talking, I could tell immediately she was CG'd to look really older than she was. And I was like, oh dear. Like, this is Jeff Bridges' Tron Legacy.
Yeah.
Like, she was there. Why not just put her in old makeup? I will believe it. But everything else usually looked fine. It wasn't really too many bad like CG moments.
No.
I would have
There
to.
was actually-
I will say this though. I feel really bad for the fight choreographer because like he made some amazing fights, but he had to incorporate how a shield would work in these fights. So he's like, all right, we're going to fight. We're going to fight. Fuck, where do I throw the shield now? Because it has to bounce back to get back to you. God, there's no corners in this room.
The storyboarding of that must have been horrifying.
I will also say regarding the CG that it was nice to see that there was less of it than usual.
Yeah, there had to have been just tons of practical effects because it's the captain and his main weapon is a shield that flies around, so a lot of his combat is with his own two hands and bashing people with a shield. So a lot of it was just one-on-one combat and driving around and stuff. So it was a lot of practical effects, which were all, of course, really great. I really liked the scene, even though it was a little too long, but of Nick Fury driving around, trying to avoid being killed, and just getting his car just getting hammered by all of these different guns and everything. Just because it's nice to see a good car chase scene in a spy movie.
What is still functional?
The air conditioning is working at full capacity.
So I think the overall effect, we all sort of were, we were okay with the sort of special effects and visual effects.
The visual effects. Yeah, sorry.
Just a few minor glitches here and there, but other than that, lots of broken glass.
It was also really nice for them to go back to some of the stuff that was in the past to kind of bring back emphasize the idea that Captain is a person out of his own time. So when they go to the, Zola's giant brain computer building, and it's all very retro looking, and it's nice to have that kind of set because it takes you back to the first Captain America movie.
Not to mention, he does whip out his old OG Captain America costume at the very end. After wearing, the suit that he wore actually is called his super soldier suit, and in the comics he wears that when he gives up the mantle of Captain America to Bucky. In this one, I just called it his stealth suit because it was like that dark silvery color and bluish, and the first time you see it, he's in sort of a stealthy mission.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
And it's a cool looking suit, but you kind of need the red, white, and blue. Like that one was very like you used it really well because that's when he's a member of S.H.I.E.L.D. And now at the very end he's like, fuck S.H.I.E.L.D, I'm Captain America. So it was a good little transition. I hope he keeps it because that's like the first, like his practical like World War II suit. So far I think it has been the best movie costume version of his suit. Because the Avengers suit is all right until he put on the mask and his head looked weird.
Well, it could be worse. It could be the Red Brown costume.
Or just the giant
Or you could
helmet.
be Stan Lee.
Stan Lee's cameo was pretty funny.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure he got fired for that. Yeah.
Yep.
So of course we usually talk about the music and score. Unfortunately, we're the people. Like Gonzo's the only one who ever really pays attention to the music and score.
Hey, I like
Well,
the
okay,
music
you
on
do
score,
too.
but I don't do it as I'm not as good as Gonzo. I will say this though, it is definitely an improvement because I remember talking in Thor how I started to say all the scores of these movies and the Marvel movies started to sound very alike. Like I could listen to 2 tracks and I wouldn't be able to guess the movie. This one finally says, "Hey, we're not gonna do that." This one is a very distinct, very, very, I guess, heavy, little rock, little espionage-oriented score to it that makes it stand out. You know, it's no longer it's no longer just Captain America. It's Captain America. Like it's much better.
Because he became more of a badass, so his music needed to become more badass.
There you go.
His music got the super soldiers hero.
So, what are your guys' favorite moments?
Brendan, let's start with you.
Since we've talked over you this whole conversation.
No, okay. It's well,
I can go first if it helps.
that would help actually.
Okay.
Sorry.
Because like my favorite moment is pretty much any moment where there's banter between Black Widow and Captain America. I love their little bantering. I love her trying to set him up on dates. I love their, like, when they're trying to go undercover in a mall in the Apple store. And she's like, kiss me, to hide from the other people. And yet they remain in a completely non-romantic relationship. I like that can go there. But I do love that scene where they're where they're in the Apple store and the guy, like the guy who works there, is just staring at him and they think their cover's blown and the guy's like, I have that same pair of glasses.
I know, that was pretty good.
And then probably my other favorite scene is the second stinger where Bucky is at the museum seeing himself and, you know, starting to find out who he really is, because that is such a wonderful setup.
Okay. I can follow you now because I just remembered how I felt seeing that movie. I mean, that scene in the movie where we're at the Air and Space Museum and we've got the whole exhibit dedicated to Captain America. I could not contain myself just sitting in my seat watching that scene, because it's like, hey, look, the Air and Space Museum, I've been there.
And the way it was laid out was so realistic. It looked like a legitimate exhibit where you got some lighted panels on the wall, and then you have a room where you sit on like a low seat and you watch a film that's being on loop, and it was so realistic. I want to go to that museum.
Yeah, I would totally go to that exhibit if it were at the Air and Space Museum. They did their homework for this one. So yeah, that's one of the scenes I liked. Call me heartless, but I actually kind of liked the scene where it looked like Nick Fury was going to die, because that was one of the few times you actually saw emotion from Black Widow. I mean, that wasn't, you know.
And Agent Hill, who we didn't talk about at all.
Right.
And especially
she was kind of in the film, and then she was also kind of in filming How I Met Your Mother and Disappointing America.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
So that aside, if you guys have watched the cutscenes from Avengers, there was a whole lot of her narrating the Avengers, and it was basically like her versus Fury and her not trusting him, and there was this whole story that basically got cut out. And then, so if you know, it's not canon anymore because it got cut. But if you know that, and then you go into the second Captain America, and you see her getting emotional about Nick Fury, it's a little nice. It's just nice to see that they have reconciled their differences.
Man, she got a lot cut out of Avengers. She didn't have a very major part to play, great deal of screen time in this movie. She just can't catch a break. I mean, first she gets canned as Wonder Woman, and then just
Wow.
She can't win.
can't
Nope.
win. She got to play
Thank
Lego
God.
Wonder Woman though.
That's cool.
Yeah, but just that scene I thought was kind of touching. Just there, as touching as it is possible to be when you are in a room with somebody else who is on their deathbed, essentially.
And what's neat about that is that it doesn't matter if you know any of these characters in this movie are signed on for future movies. You legitimately felt like their life was in danger because Nick Fury could have actually died and you would have believed it. And
Right.
like when Captain got shot in the stomach and fell into the water, you're like, damn, he could actually die. I know he's still got a couple more movies, but I'm so worried he's dead.
I was legitimately worried that this was it for Nick Fury, but
Fury lives.
Yes.
Dude, we should make shirts. We should make shirts.
Yeah.
It's the next Coulson lives.
Fury lives.
Fury lives. Okay, so John, what were some of your favorites?
Oh gosh. The entire scene, as I mentioned already, with Computer Zola, was a favorite for me just because of how creepy it was and because of how inexplicably fond of creepy things I am. Just the atmosphere and the sound and the design and his little avatar on the screen, just everything worked in that scene to maximize the creepiness of the situation. Even though it did have one little brief comedic moment where Cap got, really mad and punched the screen. He's like, "Argh!" And the screen's all broken, and Zola just pops up on another screen. He's like, "As I was saying."
What's cool about this is that you probably could have put that exposition anywhere else, and you could have probably cut that scene, and the movie wouldn't have suffered very much. But it works so well.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been half as effective if it hadn't been delivered by that creepy little voice coming out of that bank of computers. Yeah, the creepy little leprechaun who does not want you to have his Lucky Charms.
Which is a mean thing to say because I love Toby Jones.
Well, he was green on the screen, to be fair.
So
he didn't appear to mind letting Cap have a shooting star, though.
That's true. I see what you did there.
Anyway, Brian, what were some of your favorite moments?
Whenever Captain America got into a fight, because
wait, that was the whole movie.
Well, he did just some normal running around too.
Yeah, he did some running on your left.
On your left.
That's the phrase. That's like the catchphrase of the movie is on your left.
Captain America, the Winter Soldier, on your left.
That should be the next title.
On your left.
On your left.
But because I'm huge, I'm a big fan just like on-screen fighting and martial arts and things like that. And there was definitely a lot of time and effort put into this. And like I said, it must have been, it was probably a nightmare to incorporate the shield into some of these fights, but they did a very good job with it. I wouldn't mind a little bit less close-ups at times. I kind of want to see everyone doing stuff, but when you got to see what's up,
the camera still.
Keep the camera a little still, yes. Not as bad as other movies though. Looking at you, Bourne Ultimatum, that almost made me throw up in the theater.
Oh.
But basically, I'm very simple person. I'm like, I want to see Captain America fight a guy. He's going to fight this guy. Awesome. Let's see how it is. That ruled. On to the next scene.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we've already gone way over how much we should have talked about this. Let's everybody really quick give your final thoughts, and then we'll give our final ratings for the film.
Okay, I'll start real quick.
Yeah. Go.
Very excellent follow-up to the first Captain America film, and I'm excited to see the third one.
Okay, John?
It's cool. I liked it. I don't regret seeing it.
Brendan?
No regrets whatsoever. I like it. Definitely proves that Marvel can do, slightly darker themed movies in addition to their usual comic book bluster and explosions and stuff.
I agree with everything we just said. It's a really fantastic film. It stands, well above some of the other Marvel films that they've produced so far. It's just excellent. And with that said, we're going to give our final ratings. Now, for those who don't know, our ratings go with our highest rating is see it now, then wait for the matinee, wait for a DVD, wait for rental, wait for cable, don't even bother, and Brian's personal rating of fuck this movie.
I love that we still have that rating.
It's very important.
Well, you know, if Kick-Ass 3 ever materialized,
Don't you
We
even
won't review it.
start
We
with
just
me.
won't review
I
it.
will come over there.
and kick my ass.
I'll give you a stern lecture, young man.
Okay, Ryan, give us your final rating.
Obviously, this is a go see it now. Many people probably have already seen it once, so go see it again.
All right, John.
I'm with Brian. Go see it now. You know, just do it. All your friends already have. You don't want to be left out, do you?
Brendan.
I'm definitely with those two. If continuity in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or just Marvel movies in general, is a thing for you, you should probably go see this now, because it will be talked about.
And I agree. See it now. If you're listening to our show and you haven't seen it yet, what the hell are you doing? You've just heard all of the spoilers in the world. Go see the film now. Go see it again. Give them all of your money, because it's so good. And we want to see lots more just like it, but slight variations.
Marvel hasn't made quite enough money yet, guys. There's still a few little islands that they can't afford to buy.
Disney, on the other hand.
Disney already owns everything.
Anyway, so the overall consensus is that it's a really excellent film, and we're really happy to have talked about it because we were pumped. All the time we have for this week's Nerd to the Third, because we've already talked your ears off about this film. That's how good it was. So anyway, that's all the time we've got. Join us next week. We'll talk about some other cool shit. Taka, play us out. Or don't, because Taka doesn't play us out.